Well, it's interview time now. Attempts by the US media to use the Freedom of Information Act to find out which banks received federal loans during the financial crisis have been blocked. Let's now cross to our Washington studio, where RT's Aliona Minkowski is with legal analyst Nicole Cardell to find out where the law stands on this. Hello to you, Aliona. So, you're welcome.
Thank you. Well, that's right. At a time of financial crisis in the U.S., after a nearly $800 billion stimulus package was passed earlier this year, and after a $700 billion bailout was passed in 2008 under the Bush administration, Americans are wanting to know, where is all that money going? Already, lawmakers are trying to pass a bill that would ask for an audit of the Federal Reserve. But there are some media outlets out there trying to take a different route. They're filing lawsuits under the Freedom of Information Act. But bad news, just last week, one of these lawsuits in which they tried to find out which banks were given bailouts and how much money they got was rejected. So a loss for transparency when a lot of Americans want to see it most. So why is this happening, and is all hope lost? Here to discuss that with me is Nicole Cardell, RT's legal analyst. Thank you for being with us today. So Nicole, tell me, why is this going on? What's with all the secrecy?
Yeah, well, the justification that you'll hear both from the Fed that was worked out through the pleadings in the various cases by these media outlets, as well as from the judge in the decision that just came down last week, was that they don't want to deter borrowers from financial institutions from borrowing at the discount window at the Fed, and they don't want to reveal information that might result in panicky withdrawals from people because they're concerned about what's actually going on. Now, in reality, if that's the truth, that's their justification. But in reality, what actually is going on? I guess you could posit that maybe the Fed doesn't fully know themselves. Bernanke, when he appeared before or for congressional hearings a couple of weeks ago, wasn't able to give any detail about where $500 billion exactly went. The little bit more skeptical side of me wonders.
Do you think that there might be some corruption going on there? I mean, how can the chairman of the Federal Reserve have no idea where some of this money went?
Yeah. Well, I think the skeptical side of me wonders that very thing, because there's, a lot of possibilities that what happens is that for those that are politically well connected, they can receive a real windfall if they're the first ones in line to be getting, massive amount of money that are being printed out at the Fed.
But what's the legal reasoning behind the rejection of this lawsuit that's already been filed under the Freedom of Information Act? It's supposed to be free.
Yeah, well, let me do a little bit of backtrack. So what happened with these different media outlets is that they had submitted requests from the Fed to get very specific amounts of information on the various money that was lent out between 2007 and 2008. Those requests were denied by the Federal Reserve Board, and they were arguing that that information was exempted. There's 9 enumerated exemptions under the Act where a government agency wouldn't be required to submit that information. So these media outlets went and they sought relief from the federal courts. 2 cases are still pending, but the case that was just denied last week, the justification was, look, this material is exempt through trade secrecy laws and such, or through trade secrecy.
Amazing, because you think this is a time, really, when Americans deserve to know where all this money goes at a time of crisis like this. Is there anything else that can be done? I mean, what are the next steps, or do the other 2 pending cases you think have a chance of actually winning?
I have a little bit of hope with one of the other cases that's pending before actually the same court, not the same judge, but the same court out of Southern District of New York. That judge had requested a little bit more information on from both sides of the case on what it means to be an agency, because that's one of the arguments that the Fed had brought back of why they were exempted, is that the banks, like the Bank of New York, wasn't a government agency, and that's why they were exempted from having to disclose any of that information. So that judge might come out a little bit different. However, the better thing we've got in the works right now, which is before Congress, is that out of the Fed Act, H.R. 1207 before the House, and I think it's S602 before the Senate. There's a lot of co-sponsors, and that will allow us, to see more of what's going behind through an audit of the Fed.
How does that differ differ, really, when we talk about people that are questioning the law and judges that are rejecting these cases, and then lawmakers trying to pass a law that would allow for this to happen. I mean, where does that break down?
Well, the nice thing is that Congress is actually doing something that they ought to be doing, is taking a proactive stance in what goes on with our currency. Frankly, it's Congress that is constitutionally required to be the one that is to have oversight of currency under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution.
So it might be left up to the Congress at this point. Well, we'll see how things keep going and keep you updated. Back to you over there in Moscow.
All right, Eliana, thank you very much. We're looking forward to